we have to look around and realize that financing is the key to open any door at the end of the day.
In your words, what is lobbying?
Although it may seem convoluted, at its root, the definition of lobbying is a citizen's right to speak freely, to impact decisions, and petition the government. In modern day, however, this definition is merely a baseline interpretation.
So lobbying essentially, it's kind of like a really complicated, messy thing, but simply put, it's just a group of people backed by some financial system. So one of them is either really rich or many of them are very rich. And then essentially they represent an interest, right? So they form these interest groups, and they range from environmental to big business to voter expansion.
It's like a complicated question a little bit, because there's two realms, right? So you have like the American perception, and you have like what it really is. And I think you ask any American what lobbying is, right? And they'll view it as, a legal form of bribery, right? So, just one person, usually a corporation in their heads, just kind of giving money to, to a politician, to somebody in power.
Before we move further, it's important to note the three main kinds of lobbying. The first one, special interest lobbying, focuses on groups that lobby Congress on specific issues. Special interest lobbying can either lobby for nonprofits like cancer research and housing for the homeless, or can be partisan groups that want to push a political agenda. The next kind of lobbying is citizen lobbying. These are citizens who want to influence individual representatives by doing things like attending marches, writing letters, and attend town hall meetings. The third kind of lobbying is corporate lobbying. This is when corporations and businesses hire lobbyists to push for legislation in attempts to protect and increase revenue. Corporate lobbying is what we'll be focusing on today. Corporate lobbying plays a large role in American politics and government by working together with the business world. The goal of business is simple: to grow. To do this, they want more money from the government. Businesses can't directly do this themselves for legal reasons, which is why they approach lobbyists to complete this task. Lobbyists act as the middlemen between businesses and government. Modern-day corporate lobbying consists of big businesses paying lobbyists to represent their views and act as their spokesperson to advocate and change legislation by influencing politicians. The goal of this process is to aid these corporations and businesses so they can continue to grow. The purpose and intention of corporate lobbying is not vile, but when it's incorporated into American society through economics, politics, and law, corporate lobbying paints a picture of self-interest into America's soil. To see where the general population stands, I went around my company area and asked a question to a few cadets.
Private, do you believe that all people are inherently selfish?
Yes.
Private, do you believe that all people are inherently selfish?
I do believe that, yes.
Do you believe that all people are inherently selfish?
Yes, to a certain degree. Yes.
Corporals, do you believe that all people are inherently selfish?
No.
I think that you cannot generalize one specific thing to an entire
Let's get out of here. CC, do you believe that all people are inherently selfish?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes, because you are in my room asking me a question when I'm trying to sleep. Therefore, you are selfish.
Do you believe that all people are inherently selfish?
A little bit. Well,
Yes, I do.
Do you believe that all people are inherently
No English. No English.
He speaks fluent English.
No English.
He's in my company. He speaks fluent English.
I don't know what you're
Unbelievable.
With a yes factor of about 80%, this helps us understand why corporate lobbying can be comprised of self-interest. But it can't be left at that. What more is there? Here are two of my company mates on the topic.
When influence can be bought, and when prestige when prestige, leaving a legacy, and all these things that can lead to good policy, when that is switched to, okay, like how much money can this company give me, right? Or, in elections with like a super PAC, right? How much money can they dedicate to a super PAC? Or how much money can they give my election campaign, right? That's when you see the benefits of interest group wane, right? Because it's no longer like, somebody with passion and, who wants to make a change for the better. It's a company who makes a very calculated decision on, okay, hey, this law is going to help out our company in this way.
It's the amass of wealth with the intent to hoard it, right? In an ideal world, what I would want somebody that's very wealthy to do is to take that money and to put it into business, give people jobs, create work, help generate for a new generation that's coming up, right? And don't just keep it to yourself. And I think greed, at its heart, it's self-interest, and I think that it can cripple society relatively quickly.
Do you think greed can play a role into lobbying?
Yeah, 100%. I think lobbying at its core is greed. I don't think greed's necessarily a bad thing to begin with. I think in lobbying specifically, I think that greed has its place. You have to be self-interested to get your policies through. Otherwise, I don't think there's a lot of altruism going on in the world in terms of lobbying. But I do think that there's a time and place for greed, and for all of us to simply recognize that we all are greedy. So.
Money and power are two of the most powerful and influential tools, which is why the economical and political parts of corporate lobbying create the dangerous tendency to abandon the good of the whole and pursue the growth of the individual. Evaluating the ethics of corporate lobbying is also something to consider. Take a look at the film Thank You for Smoking, where a lobbyist, Nick Naylor, works for the tobacco industry, whose sole purpose is to promote and incorporate cigarettes into people's lives.
I earn a living fronting an organization that kills 1,200 human beings a day. 1,200 people. We're talking 2 jumbo jet plane loads of men, women, and children. I mean, there's Attila, Genghis, and me, Nick Naylor, the face of cigarettes, the Colonel Sanders of nicotine.
As mentioned before, there are non-profit organizations that lobby the same way as Nick Naylor, but for different purposes, like cancer research or suicide awareness, and so on. But when something like the tobacco industry is being lobbied, it becomes a much different story.
If your parents told you that chocolate was dangerous, would you just take their word for it? No! Exactly! So perhaps instead of acting like sheep when it comes to cigarettes, you should find out for yourself.
As mentioned before, the definition of lobbying is a person's right to seek influence and petition the government. But as time went on, this forgotten concept has now turned into a symbol of American society, a symbol of selfishness built upon the quest for economic evolution. America was built upon the foundation that government was created, decisions were made, and rules were enforced for the good of the whole, and not for the benefit of businessmen. The self-interest and breach of ethics exemplified by corporations and lobbyists are nothing but a depiction of the country we live in today, surrounded by the businesses that hold the influence of millions of Americans. The picture of America, painted in 1776, has been and is still coded in a cheap, darkened pigment of self-interest. The artists of such a painting are none other than the corporations and their lobbyists, which continue to coat what was once a picture for the American people.